Where that's in there.
Just before the end of the word.
It was in my box.
Oh, your box. Oh, that's.
Right. I can see it all.
Okay, so let's resume. And there was kind of a little bit of an unresolved issue that brought to my attention by the planning director, and maybe we can sort of fold that into the discussion of the Citizens Committee. The question of the scope of concentration of the various groups so far as the EIR itself is concerned. John, you want to take the lead again?
Just on that particular item, if Clay doesn't mind, sort of a carryover from the last item is the staff report indicated that Open Space and Ecology and Park and Rec are the other two city advisory commissions, and then you have BBCAG. On the staff report for Clay's item, I did attach a draft agenda, draft table of contents for the draft EIR with an indication of which topics might be reviewed theoretically by the various advisory boards. So the question for the council is if you have specific direction to either of your advisory boards, OSEC or Park and Rec, as to which topics you expect them to comment on, or do you want to leave it up to their judgment, to the breadth of their review? So I just wanted to bring that up, and that's why that was provided in the staff report for attachment to Clay's staff report. So with that, I'll apologize to Clay, and I'll turn it over to him.
You can handle the whole thing if you'd like. I didn't see him take up the offer, so this item is a companion piece to the last item you had. Last June, the council gave direction to establish an ad hoc committee of citizens for the purposes of reviewing the draft environmental document that, as we've talked about before, will be coming out relatively soon. We did advertise for citizens to come forward in the Brisbane Star and on our website and blog, and letters were sent to many individuals within the community and groups within the community. At the time that we put the staff report together, we had 16 people who had indicated an interest, and those are listed on the third sheet of your staff report. Subsequent to that, we have 4 additional people who have come forward and indicated an interest in participating, so we're now up to 20. We are proposing to set an initial date for a meeting on January 9th, 2012, be more or less an organizing meeting.
I'm sorry, repeat that date?
Excuse me, you're right. January 9th, 2013.
Good.
Yeah, we put 12. That's okay. Common December mistake, right?
Isn't that the date for the next Open Space and Ecology meeting?
No, we postponed our Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting in anticipation of receiving the
Yeah, we've got our next Open Space and Ecology January 30th. We were optimistic. We were being optimistic is what I take.
Okay. So January 9th for the organizational committee of the community reviewers of the draft EIR.
Right. The anticipation of that would be the meeting for them to come together and organize themselves in terms of how they want to move forward. Mm-hmm. And as John indicated, that's probably one of the discussions you want to have tonight in terms of your direction to the group. As we noted, you have already asked the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Open Space and Ecology Commission, to look at specific aspects of the EIR. The BBCAG has kind of a, by its nature and focus, some areas that it would focus on. And so the thought was that the Citizens Committee would be asked to look at all the other sections, but not precluded from looking at, taking a fresh look at the other areas that the other committees are taking a look at. The purpose of this group is something that they would need to discuss at the first meeting. There's various ways they can organize themselves. They could basically meet for the purposes of discussing the EIR and the various chapters of the EIR, and then coming together and writing a report that would be sent in as the comments. They don't necessarily have to do it that way. It could be something where it's more of a study group sort of format. But as we've been discussing earlier tonight, the only way to really get your comments responded to is to actually make a formal response or a formal a comment or through the comment period. City staff involvement in this is intended to be fairly minimal. We would be at the first meeting and helping organize, I think, as well as the mayor. Subsequent to that, we would have a staff contact person for the committee to be in touch with if there were specific questions that they had. The city clerk would arrange for rooms for either the entire committee to meet or subcommittees of the committee to meet if they organize in that fashion. And then we also thought that would be useful to provide a staff person, in this case, we're thinking of Lisa Panacorvo, to assist the committee or the subcommittees in writing their comments if they want somebody to assist them. They don't have to. And then I think the final point that needs to be made, and this is probably self-evident, but involvement in this group does not preclude an individual from making their own individual comments on the EIR. So they can make group comments and the individual comments. So with that, we'll take any questions or direction. And as I indicated, you probably want to spend a little bit of time, as John indicated, going over what specific direction you would like to give to this committee in terms of areas to review.
Well, I've had a citizen I've been talking to the last couple of months, actually, who's been wanting to get involved in Brisbane, and I suggested to him about becoming part of the Citizens Committee. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he indicated he's finishing up on his master's on this month. And so, you know, he wasn't quite sure of the time frame on this, but I can surely point him in Sherry's direction and have him come down to volunteer for that. And so, I mean, right now, we have 20.
We have 20 at the moment, and I would say that people can volunteer right up until the time of that first meeting.
Okay.
Sure, and maybe even after that, but, you know, certainly there's nothing that would preclude somebody just showing up that night and we'd put them on the list.
Yeah, because we are talking about a 2,000-page document.
That's the rumor I hear.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this could scare some folks off, you know, after they usually look at.
Although I will tell you that, you know, I mean, I'm kind of reviewing the draft of the draft, and in terms of the narrative, it's fairly good reading. I think the technical reports are always going to be more challenging. You know, that's really your area of expertise. So I don't think I would caution, or I would say to people that might be intimidated by the number of pages that it may not be as bad as you might think. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
I think it will read fairly well.
All right.
Who was the person you were talking about? You said he's getting his master's. Who were you talking about? Sorry, I didn't hear the name that you were talking.
I don't know his last name. I just know him by his first name.
And who is he? I mean,
He's a citizen who's interested in.
oh, I didn't
Serving.
hear that part. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he's
Okay.
a citizen that's interested in serving the city, how he can volunteer somehow, that's all. Yeah.
And the meetings are what time? Have we talked about that?
Well, we were going to organize the first meeting, and then it's up to them. And if they break into subcommittees, it's up to them to decide when they want to meet and where they want to meet. It's not subject to the Brown Act, so they're completely open to whatever way they wish to organize themselves.
So at the first meeting, the January 9th meeting, what time is that going to be?
I think we were probably thinking 6 o'clock or something like
Right,
that,
that's what I
6:30,
put.
something like that.
Yeah, put it 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exciting.
Okay, yeah, it does seem to me that you need to give the group some flexibility in how they want to organize themselves, and what kind of leadership they want, and maybe it makes sense to really, divide into subcommittees. We certainly should, in my view, we certainly should inform them about, what the other committees and commissions are probably focusing on. And that means that, okay, these chapters are really going to be, quote, uncovered if you all don't do it. But we don't want to, I don't think, say, we shouldn't do those other chapters that, let's say, open space and ecology is focusing on, because they might want to do that as well if there's people who are really interested in. And I know of someone, I don't know whether they're among the four that you mentioned, but one of the former members of Open Space and Ecology is very interested in, in the energy section. But she probably isn't going to be able to come to meetings,
You want me to read
So-
the additional 4 people into the record?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Dana Dilworth, Paul Buscal, Marco Gagliardi, and Anjana Richards.
Okay, that's the person I was speaking of. Yeah, right. I mean, she's about to, have another child, so she's not going to be coming to meetings, but she really wants to read the stuff and comment and be in touch with other people who are interested in that subject. So the way it works is going to kind of evolve depending upon where individual people or groups of people are at. So I hope we could sort of manage it so that everyone gets a chance to participate effectively.
Yeah, well, so you're going to be there, Ray.
Yeah, on the first meeting, yeah.
I've had some people come up to me and they say, well, what am I supposed to do? I got your letter and I'm interested in participating. And then, of course, I tell them that the document's pretty thick and there's a lot of depth, that's in that document, but, that you don't feel obligated that you have to read the whole thing.
Right.
Choose the things that you're interested in.
Right.
And so they felt very relieved to know, okay, I can do that. I'm not going to be responsible
Right,
for
right.
knowing all this stuff. Exactly. So, but you're right. There might be some things that that don't strike anybody. Like traffic.
And yet it's pretty important, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you might have to steer some folks to, taking that on.
What I would suggest maybe is just come up with a list, as a starter list of how they may want to proceed as a group. Just to kind of get it started and then let their creativeness take over in a
Right.
sense. You know what I mean? Because since we're not guiding it, it's like,
There's a lot of good people there.
just throw out some ideas to kind of get it started, and then at
Well,
that
we
point,
give them the-
let the creative juices take over and how they want to look and how they want to function.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and we know that there's people that have been on different advisory
Right,
groups, so they know how to
right.
organize. And you're right. You should allow the people to. You should empower them to. To take this on in the way that they feel that they can contribute to the best of their ability.
Okay, great. Okay, there's one sensitive topic which is related to what we were talking about before. Got 2 emails questioning whether, even if the person is a citizen, if they are employed by the developer in some way or another, is that a, quote, conflict of interest? And that comes back to some of the things we were saying before about different roles that people play, city employees, council members, in this case, employees of the developer. That probably should be folded into this whole question of what's appropriate for various people with different roles to play in this process. I don't know whether you want to comment on that now or just make it a part of the overall.
The conflict would kick in if they're given a part of the decision-making process. If they're participating in the decision, that's the first thing you look at. If they're part of a citizens committee and they're just commenting on the EIR, I guess the question is, well, to what extent are they really participating in the decision? I think certainly there ought to be a disclosure, but we want to have a better idea of what that committee is going to do and give it some more thought, I think. But
Okay.
I'm not sure you could make an argument they're participating in the governmental decision, but we really don't know to what extent the Citizens Committee, where it's going to go and what impact it's going to have on the final decision. So, I don't know.
Do we have a person here that works for the developer in this list?
Yeah.
Who's this?
I'm doing community outreach and trying to bring more people into the process, and I'm charging them, being paid by them for that.
You just have come up.
Yeah, yeah. You should probably come up front.
Yes.
Sorry, now that you're speaking.
Yeah, come
Yeah,
for,
come, please, yeah. Otherwise, the camera won't pick you up.
I hope those folks at home are not in bed. You probably are in bed. Sorry, yeah. So I've been working with them for about the last couple months to try to bring more people into the process, and I approached them over the summer to hire me to work with me as a community member, a community leader, to just really try to broaden the scope, the range of people that are involved. And I'm really glad to hear that you have the Citizens Committee and you've got a range of other things that you're bringing up to try to include as many people as possible. Because, there's the kind of a perception that it's been a small, tight group of people that have been sort of steering the process, to this point. And it really is important that you hear from as wide a range of people as possible in Brisbane. And that's why I approached them about doing this kind of work for them, because it's what I do.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
For me, if someone is paid public relations person, most of the time, if a company's going to pay for public relations staff, it's not to be unbiased. It's to shed light, to make the company look good, or you wouldn't pay for someone to publicize you in not a good light. So I think that it would be odd to be on a
I agree.
proposed citizen committee as an employee that's paid to be a public relations advertiser.
Can I jump in here too? Because I concur with that. When you said employee, I thought, well, maybe somebody who is a UPC employee or whatever. But if you're being paid for public relations, UPC will have its own opportunity to comment on the EIR. And if you're basically in public relations to facilitate some community opinion or whatever, the purpose of this committee, as I understand it, is to get sort of impartial input from the community on the EIR of people who are not otherwise on various commissions or boards or whatever. And I think the risk you run is that someone can make the accusation more against UPC than against the city that they're trying to influence this committee by essentially getting their own representative on it, who would then try to sway opinion one way or the other. If UPC has a particular agenda or particular part of the EIR that they want changed or whatever. So I think Councilmember O'Connell is correct that there could be some inherent risks in doing that, and probably wouldn't be a great idea.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I mean, Jessica, I mean, your integrity is flawless, and I don't think anyone would ever expect you to, be not being, just a really true and forthright person. But I do have to agree with Terry's view in that you need to. The separation needs to be clear, and though I think I'm proud that you've taken on this role, and I think it's important that UPC has a better understanding of the community. It just makes sense. I mean, eventually, we're going to have a project. I mean, UPC is the landowner, and we're going to have to work together. And they need to know where we're coming from, and I think you play the perfect position for that. But in this stage of the game, and with this body, it needs to be separated, in my opinion.
May I make a comment, Mr. Mayor? Yes. Cliff mentioned integrity. One of the high standard for me is really integrity and credibility. And I want to commend Jessica for disclosing that. Because I've heard some other people are employed by UPC, and it is not known. It's a rumor. I don't want to. What do you mean, don't go?
I mean, just because you said that
Hold on.
that they are, but
Would you please let me finish it? And when you're not mayor
Okay,
now, please. Because I've heard that one of the toughest job after being mayor is to not be a mayor. So right now you're a council member.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Please,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure.
So the reason I brought that up is to make sure part of our criteria that we are selecting people to have that disclosure. It is important, not that it's going to be matter. She put integrity first. She came out and said that. And if there are other people and that are in that situation, I think we need to know that. It is very important. But, I'm not going to come and say who are the names of the people that I've heard rumors, because I'm not going to judge based on that. But I think it's very important for us to get that disclosure. This is not a joke. This is our future.
So you think?
Can I respond to that? Because Councilwoman Richardson asked a question about, basically the background. And so I just want to be clear, to date, all we have done is solicit interest.
Yes.
We have no application or no way of
Right.
being able to answer any question
Right.
with regards to anybody's background on this sheet. So if there is criteria that the council wants to develop that would be disqualifying, then I think we need to put that together, and we need to have people basically sign a disclosure sheet so that we have some management to the process. And we could do that, but it's going to take a little bit of time to do it.
But I think it's
Is that where you
I'd
were?
like to-
Is that where you were going?
Exactly.
Okay, I just want to make sure
That's why.
her.
That's why I interrupted you, because you weren't letting
Well,
me
that
go on.
was-
But exactly.
In
that's
regards
what
to
I'm
the
going-
list.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because in a lot of other committees that I belong to, almost every one of them ask me to have a disclosure statement.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Even on the fundraising committees that I'm in, I'll ask for disclosure. And I think it's only appropriate for us to do that. Not
makes sense.
everybody's going to be like Jessica and say, hey, I'm it, and go ahead, shoot me.
But this is probably a little more complicated than what we're saying here. I mean,
Yes.
it's a matter of disclosure of what. So I don't think we're going to figure that out at 10:45 at night.
Right.
So what I would suggest is that, and I think we got time to do this, is probably put the January 9th meeting off past your next city council meeting. We'll bring back some proposed disclosure language for you to
I
take
think
a
it
look
would
at, which would have
I
different
think it would be
categories.
appropriate, very
Yeah,
appropriate.
I think something like that would be fine.
And maybe Jessica can help write it. No, I'm joking.
Whatever you guys think is best, really. I mean, I want to be part of the committee because I care about the project, but if you all feel like it would be a problem, or it would be seen wrong, or be perceived to be whatever, and there's suspicion, there's enough suspicion already, right? That's what I'm trying to help dial down. So, so I would just leave it up to your judgment to decide on my particular situation. And that other disclosure can of worms, I have no comment on whatsoever. I would just like to say one thing, which is that, I mean, you know this, you don't want to come across as allowing one interest group or one personality to be, stripping other people out of a process. And I don't feel that way particularly, because I do see the question, I see the problem that people are having, but I just think we don't want to go too far down that path, because, we really do want to be as inclusive as possible.
Right.
I know you do too, so thanks.
Well, can I make, not to you. I think that everyone who comes to serve publicly comes with an agenda of one sort or another. And it comes down to the oath that we take to faithfully do our duty to a certain degree. So I think that our disclosure could go a little far, but I certainly think a paid consultant is over the line. So I wouldn't expect our disclosure to be really broad-reaching on, you know, who have you supported for president or anything along those lines. But I think that Jessica personally is certainly still able to review the document, make her comments, make them public, and submit them and have them have weight as well as anyone else's comments. And so I don't think we'd be excluding her or anyone from the process if they want to be involved in it. So I think it's not that we want to be exclusive, but I think we need to be squeaky clean.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, so I guess staff's going to come up with a list, a proposed list of
Criteria.
criteria. I mean, it's, I don't think it's too difficult to,
No, I mean, it's basically stuff like, I mean,
Has you ever
what
been
we've talked
paid?
about tonight,
Yeah.
maybe some relationship to sub-consultants that are on the EIR, sub-consultants that are working for UPC, things of
Right,
that nature.
exactly,
Financial
exactly.
financial disclosure.
Okay. So I think we've given direction on that sufficient,
I'm
right?
so directed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we make a motion to extend?
I was going to say, do you want to extend the meeting to deal with the request for proposal for the
yeah,
city attorney?
let's finish it.
Yeah, I mean, after all, keeping the consultant until now and
I
say,
would hope-
nope,
Motion
I would hope we
to,
could do so, but,
I know.
It's your
motion to
pleasure.
extend the meeting
I
to
like-
11:30.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, before you tonight is a request for proposals for city attorney services. And as you recall, the council selected a council subcommittee of, at the time, Mayor Pro Tem Miller and Councilmember Seppi Richardson. That subcommittee met with city staff, the city manager, and myself 4 to 5 times to draft and review this request for proposals. It's also been reviewed by our city attorney and Ms. Bobby Peckman of the consulting firm that was hired by the council as well. So once that's approved, the next steps will be by December 20th, which is the end of this week. I'll have it posted on different websites, mailed out to a city attorney's list that I've gathered together and indicated in the staff report. And then the proposals will be due back to the city on February 14th, Valentine's Day. So if you have any changes or suggestions, that's what we're looking for here tonight, or approval.
And before we do that, I'd like to introduce
Oh,
a consultant that we hired, who's here, and is from Sacramento. Is going to be driving back to Sacramento tonight, and that's Bobby Peckham. And might want to say a few things to introduce yourself to the council.
Well, very nice to meet each of you, and I apologize I didn't have an opportunity to introduce myself during the break. But I appreciate the opportunity to observe your council meeting tonight, observe the dynamics of your community as well as the council, as well as your current staff and city attorney. And so I think that's all very, very helpful as I help you to recruit your next city attorney. So I've had an opportunity to review the RFP that was created, and I think it's very comprehensive. I'll admit, as I reviewed it again this evening, I started to wonder how a law firm might be able to, or an individual might be able to respond to all of these questions within 15 pages, and started to, quite frankly, wonder and maybe make a recommendation, or at least a subject for discussion. As you look at the RFP, you'll find a list of questions that we're asking the individual or firm to respond to. And that's in section F, approach to legal services. And there are 10 different questions that I'm assuming most firms are familiar with answering these kinds of questions. And I think when I initially reviewed this, I thought, all right, yeah, those are fairly standard questions that I would expect an individual or a firm to respond to. But I'm wondering if you want that much detail in their response at this point, or would you prefer that I simply review these sorts of things with the individual from those firms or the individual themselves, and ask those sorts of questions during my preliminary interview and then report back to you. So that's just, one thing I was thinking about is we receive those RFPs or those proposals back from individuals or firms. Are they really going to respond to each of these 10 questions in a format that you would hope that they would? So it's just a topic for discussion.
What's your experience?
I guess I was sort of curious. I meant to go and talk to Hal. I just, as a recruitment firm, we receive RFPs all the time. And they're fairly standard, and it's always a little bit of a hassle when they're not standard. Okay. When there's a lot more hoops to jump through, you may be a little less inclined to submit. And we want a good response to this, but we also want people that are interested. So for them to jump through some hoops is expected, and they should. But how many hoops do we really want to create? How many obstacles do we want to create? So I was curious what Hal thought. After reviewing this a few times and then maybe thinking about it again, I don't know if you have the same feeling that I do as a consultant.
Well, I do, and since I was not involved in preparing this, I was kind of reluctant to offer comments other than some technical things like, include this or that, but not really get into the substance of what you're asking for. But I also am very skeptical that you can fit all this in 15 pages, and if you did, you can almost get better answers through a dialogue than through a written response. And this covers an awful lot of territory and deals with subjects that I think are best handled through the interview process, either preliminarily, through your committee and the consultant, and then by the council itself. So I guess if I felt I was able to make more substantive changes, and like I said, I was kind of resistant to do that, I probably would have taken all of F out and said, I'm glad you raised the point, and said, well, these are great questions to ask someone, but they're so general in some respects, you'd almost have to think, well, how am I going to answer this? It almost asks for the universe, and especially confining it into a narrow page limitation, given all the other information that has to be given here. So, I mean, that's my own reaction to it.
Would it make
share your view.
Would it make sense to do something like, these are the kinds of questions you can expect in the interview process, something like
No, because I think your better bet is not to tell people what they're going to expect in the interview process. Because then you want to see how well they react on their feet. And
You don't want to give them a hint ahead of time?
Well, you don't get hits at council meetings, so.
I don't know. People are pretty predictable.
That's a good point, Hal.
Yeah, now when you're interviewing somebody.
You would hope that they would have anticipated these kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
mean-
I guess I'm thinking in my preliminary interviews, I can be asking these kinds of questions, and you can elaborate on these questions and get much more detail when you do your interviews.
Yeah. There's nothing here that an experienced city attorney shouldn't be able to answer.
Right.
It's the nature of the answer that I think you're looking for, and if they can't answer it, then I would think again about the applicant.
Yeah, you're right about that. And it's how they respond to the question and how you feel that, how they're providing that information to you that you feel like, okay, I can stand behind that remark.
My concern is that you're going to get a very canned answer to these questions.
Yes.
Right.
And I would suspect that perhaps if it's a law firm that's responding to this, they're going to have someone in their office that
Someone else is
Responsible.
gonna do
Probably
it.
already on the word processor.
and you're not
Boilerplate.
getting,
Yeah,
you're not getting the real person that would
Yeah.
be your city attorney.
Right.
It's a clerk answering the questions
Right,
and then
right.
check.
So
by
you
a
would
clerk.
recommend just deleting it altogether? That's what I'm hearing?
That would be
section?
if I had my druthers, that's what I would recommend, yeah.
Bobby, same?
I would, definitely.
okay.
Okay.
I think we should go with that recommendation then,
Okay.
I do too.
if the subcommittee's okay with that.
Yeah? Debbie?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we have Bobby, that, yeah, that's, we
right,
appreciate
that's
that.
good.
On,
Jerry?
on a different, I'm fine with that. It did seem a little cumbersome. Is it okay for me to move on to another section of it that I've got a question about?
It's okay with me. Is everybody else ready? Okay, go for it.
On the proposal review, we basically have a system where up to 12 people would be sort of picked as semifinalists, come to the subcommittee with 2 to 3 actually coming for a final review to the entire council.
Yeah.
Right.
I would like to be sure that at least with those 12-ish possible semifinalists, that information comes to each council member also for, which it's not listed out that would happen.
Oh, just for
Because-
review.
For our review, not necessarily with a final interview, but for preliminary comments or reviews, because I think that the role of city attorney for the council is going to be very important,
It's for everybody.
and that it's going to be very important that we're comfortable and we are confident with whomever is chosen. And I would feel limited if it were to 2 to 3 people out of the God knows how many made their original application. And so I would certainly would like to see that before it gets to that 2 to 3. And I think that it depends on, we may have a fairly wide range of backgrounds that these firms are coming from. And just like we all bring our own agendas to the table, I think that we all have, our ideal in our mind, as with any position that we're hiring for or people we have to work closely with. So I think that making that a little bit greater selection for us in our personal reviews would be a better thing.
I agree with you, Terry, on that. I think it's a prudent way to do business. Hal, it might extend your retirement for a while if you're willing. But I agree, because I mean, the better information that we just review, I mean, we may not have an opinion on it one way or another, but at least we looked at it, and having gone through a process that didn't even closely resemble this, is kind of leaves a lot of questions in your mind. I'm talking about the CCAG process and how that was chosen, and it was really very interesting, to say the least.
Very.
So let me see, so what you guys are saying is that instead of having the subcommittee interviewing the 12,
No, we're saying.
No,
No, we're saying that when it's narrowed down to 12, that we're all disseminated the information for the 12, but the subcommittee ultimately will make a recommendation.
okay, so that's.
Yeah,
what
I
you're
just
saying,
think
okay.
that we should have the opportunity, and, if I get 12 candidates and I think 1 or 2 are really good, or, and just looking at their resume or their proposal, and I think 1 or 2 are really bad, I think that we should say that up front, before we get down to 2, where I look at them and say yay or nay to whoever it is. I just think that having a selection of 12 at least to get the information and to see what possibilities are out there would be beneficial.
Mr. Mayor.
Does it work for you?
Yeah, actually, I thought maybe I can just sort of skim over this process a little bit, just to help you to understand, because I personally think it's very important that you have access to all of the information. And I also feel that councils like to be able to pick and choose. They like options. That's my experience. Most people that are selecting an employee to work with them like options. You don't like to be too restricted, and I understand that. So actually, my recommendation is, I'm not sure how many RFPs are going to go out to how many firms or individuals. I'm not sure what that number is at this point, but I think we're sort of throwing in some numbers here, just for the sake of conversation. Let's say we receive 15 proposals back. And my suggestion is that a full list of who responded be provided to the council.
Yes.
That information, those proposals from those, let's say 15 firms, be available to the council for review if you have an interest in taking a look at those. And that when you see this review of proposals, that's for me to come and meet with your council subcommittee and go over those proposals and say, all right, of these 15, maybe there's only 10, and maybe there's only 8 where we say, these are the best ones that we're seeing. And then another list go out to the full council. Okay, of those 15 that applied, we reviewed them. We've only come up with 8 that we think are the best for further review. And then you'll see that I go out and I do preliminary interviews. Let's say it's of 8 firms or 8 individuals. I do my face-to-face interviews with them, preliminary interviews. And then I come back to your subcommittee again and I'll say, all right, of those 8, I would recommend these 6 or 7. Or, gee, maybe I'm only seeing 3 or 4. Here's my concerns. This is what I'm seeing as we start to whittle things down. Let's say the subcommittee says, all right, we agree with you. Let's move forward. But that information should also be provided to the full council. All right, now we've come down to this, and this is why. Because we have concerns about these other firms or individuals after the preliminary interviews, and this is based on Bobby's recommendation. Then the council will have to basically buy into that and say, okay, yeah, here's the 4 that Bobby's recommending, or hopefully it's more than that, because I like you to have those options, and then you do those interviews with those individuals. So it's numbers. We don't know what kind of a response you're going to get. Quite frankly, I'm handling a city attorney recruitment right now that 4 years ago I had 7 applicants. Only 7. This is a full-time in-house city attorney. And so 4 years later, now I just received 30. And you don't know. I mean, I've had other city attorney recruitments where I've received many more than that. So you don't know what you're going to get. But I think, you're looking at a contract city attorney. You're not looking at a full-time city attorney that's in-house all the time. So I think that's what's going to be a little bit different about this recruitment. It's also an RFP that they're responding to, which is a little bit different from many in-house city attorney recruitments where, for instance, I'm creating a brochure that I'm sending out to every city attorney, assistant city attorney across the state. So it's a little bit different. So I'm not sure what kind of numbers you're going to get. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yes, actually, you mentioned something that really hit home personally. Council likes to pick and choose, no doubt. For example, when we have subcommittees, economic development, sustainability, or this or that, I want to know what's happening, as if I'm there. The law prevents me to be there because of the, the 2. So, but I don't like it when I don't know, and then I get recommendation. So I think this is really good, what you brought up. It is important for all of the council members to come along as the subcommittee is going along. I definitely support that.
Yeah, my understanding of the subcommittee is simply to alleviate everyone having to participate in this lengthy review of proposals and that sort of thing.
Right.
But I think it's critical that you all have access to it and that you're kept
Right.
informed as to what's happening. Now we've got it down to this, and this is why. Here we're going with this, and this is why. But this is an individual, I mean, I watched the interaction that you have with your city attorney. It's critical that you feel comfortable with that individual,
Right.
just like you do with your city manager.
Right.
So it's, that relationship is going to be very, very important. That's why all 5 of you have to feel comfortable when you do those finalist interviews.
I have some language just to see if this works for you. On the last page where we talk about the proposal review, which is what we're talking about now, we're talking about recommendation of finalists. If we say, and Terry, I'd like you to check with me. The subcommittee will review the results of the preliminary interviews and in consultation with the council provide a recommendation of the leading candidates. How's that sound?
That's fine. I just,
Sound good?
yes, I just felt this was very limiting,
Yes, it's
putting,
You know, I really like the language that Bobby presented, how she put that out, you know, and I think it addressed where you were coming from, Terry, about having that disclosure with the 12 or so firms. Also getting that feedback, that you could read it if you wanted to. You know, I mean, for me, I think I'd be fine, or it would be fine for me to know later in the process. I'm going to trust the subcommittee working with the consultant to screen those.
Well, that's why I made it kind of generic, to let each council member decide how much they want to do.
You know, but Terry had brought up doing it earlier in the
process.
Bobby.
and I think that, you know, perhaps that we could do it at
What do you
the,
mean earlier?
The review of
Before the
proposals.
12?
I think she just outlined the process.
She did. She outlined the process.
First of all, I think you should eliminate the numbers here.
Yeah.
I think these numbers are really more for your ideas in terms of how many you may be looking
just
at.
really-
Yeah, I mean,
These
if we
numbers
get-
aren't
if we
necessarily
get 30
accurate.
people or 30 firms that, I mean, if we want to review them, then I think we should, so perhaps at the beginning, we have that the information is available to council.
It's whatever the number is going to be. And I think you outlined the process as making everything available to the council as a whole. But as we ferret down through there, here's the steps and this is where we're at. And that's,
Because
So-
this is in your RFP, and actually, whomever responds to this RFP doesn't need to know the numbers. So I guess I would pull that out, quite frankly.
Isn't that the contract that would be between you as the recruiter and the city?
Yes.
Not.
And I think that's
Not the
probably,
process that would be between the projected or proposed employee and the city.
Right.
So that should be part of the contract, not part of the
RFP, right. Yeah, the numbers don't really need to be in there. So that's one item. I'd simply pull the numbers out. And then the other item is to simply somehow fashion the language in here that the full council will have access to the proposals. But I'll be working with a subcommittee.
That makes sense to me.
We wouldn't want you to have to meet with all of us all the time.
So does this need to come back again to us, or we can just direct the staff to work out the,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to come back.
yeah, but I really don't.
You know, but there's one question I have for you, Bobby. And you talked about, you know, that relationship with the attorney, and yeah, it needs to be comfortable. You need to feel confident, you know, to get that counsel. And so, you could be in-house, or you contract. And so, is there a cost savings to being in-house, or no? Or you're better off? I mean, I don't know.
That's
I mean,
a whole nother council meeting.
okay. All right.
yeah, that's a big one.
And my experience is that's debatable, and many cities do a very in-depth analysis of that. And I think some cities have found for that particular city. It works better to simply have someone in-house every day, right down the hall, that is an employee appointed by the council. Other cities find that a contract city attorney with a law firm works just fine, and that works for them. So I know that's something that we talked about initially when I met with the subcommittee. It's my understanding that you're looking at a contract city attorney. And most likely that individual will come from a law firm. They will appoint an individual within that law firm. However, there are some folks out there that perhaps have retired at 55 from another city and would like to do this on a contract basis. So that's why I'm saying it could be a law firm with an appointed individual
So we
within the
thought
law
it'd be
firm.
better to leave it open?
Yeah,
It could be
definitely.
an individual
Yes,
that chooses to
that was
apply.
That's what we decided.
And I did notice, and I don't know if this is something that's just in language, that in some of the questionings, and it was listing more of, sounding like it was just a firm that you were looking for, instead of, or an individual.
Can you give an example?
Include a cover letter signed by a duly authorized representative of the firm.
That's in case if,
But there were several places that I noticed that where it almost sounded like we were giving preference to a firm rather than to an individual. And perhaps that's the legalese, because if they're an attorney, they would need to be their own firm, and it could be a firm of one. So, and perhaps, so that might be a redundancy that I'm seeing that is not really, I just didn't know if it would insinuate that only if it was a firm would their proposal be accepted.
I think we went through this exact comment, and there's a paragraph, there's a statement in the very beginning somewhere,
Yeah, right, you can-
right in the very beginning, that
Individual or firm.
right.
exactly, it says what our intentions are. So whoever reads it would know that we are open to both, even though the question might refer to a firm, if it's applicable to them. But the first paragraph, it was the driving.
I read the first paragraph, and again, it was more the language as you went on that was, I felt ambiguous. But probably to an attorney, it isn't ambiguous.
Everything is ambiguous to an attorney.
Sorry.
So, proposal review, so, I mean, we've decided that we'll take out the numbers
Numbers.
there. But I still think that the language that I proposed it responds to what everyone was talking about, but it doesn't have to be that exact language. But I think we do need to say something somewhere.
Yeah.
That there is to be a process of, you don't want to call it consultation, but, participation of the full council in the review of the material or something like that, because and as of now, there's no such statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what Bobby had said
So I
was,
guess something like that needs to be
was good.
added here.
I think staff is going to do that.
Okay?
And
I think we're all good
we
with
can
it.
get an email
with
of
that,
that
I'm-
comment, so just through email, we can give our consent.
That's right, I'm at the right.
Yep.
You had something else, Terry?
No, I was just going to say that I think with those changes, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, I had a couple of, I had an email from one of our citizens who pointed out two things about the RFP. And one was the number of employees we have now. She was
Do we
pointing
need
out-
to disclose who's asking the question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was sent to everybody.
Yeah, it's a
But it
public-
was from Dana Dilworth. And
Yeah,
she was
that's-
just pointing out that a couple of things that struck her as maybe not correct. And one was the background on the city and how many employees we have. And she was saying somewhere it says that we have 80 employees,
80 full-time.
whereas it should
It's in the
be,
third paragraph of the background.
yeah,
Yes.
right. Whereas it should be, what?
Well, yeah.
Distinction between full-time equivalent
That's what FTE stands for, right?
Yes.
as opposed to
Right.
But we'll go back and take a look.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably close to 80 when you add in all the Parks and Recreation part-time people.
Okay, so that's, the FTE is the key, the full-time
Yeah.
equivalent.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other comment was made is that there was nothing in terms of the responsibilities having to do with the successor agency. And I thought, oh, okay. I mean, I don't think we did mention that. And so I thought. The successor agency has its own legal. Beg pardon?
But you comment.
No, I'm not talking about the oversight panel. I'm talking about Brisbane as a successor agency.
Yeah, you represent the city as a, yeah.
Yes,
Well,
Al would comment on,
Right.
on those kind of questions if we had them.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and that, you know, we would ask our attorney to comment on that, and it isn't mentioned anywhere.
Okay.
And so I just thought, well, okay, if we wanted to add, because we got a lot of bullets for it, we could say something like, you know, provide legal advice to the city and its
Well, it does-
role as successor agency to the redevelopment agency. something like that.
It does say tax increment issues with the former redevelopment agency.
Right, it does say that, but it doesn't talk specifically about the successor agency, which is a new legal situation, so. I thought, oh, well, okay, we could add that.
The next 4
Okay.
years, anyway.
What's that?
I said for the next 4
For
years.
the next 4 years, yeah,
Yep.
right, okay. And then I have one other question, the background checks? Are they on everybody, or, I mean, everybody who's in the last cut, or the preliminary cut, or who's gonna get the background checks?
I think background checks should be done on your, my recommendation would be to do an initial background check, which is typically, we just
Keep
run
hitting it.
I think it's a civil, criminal, and the education. And then when you get into the individual that you want to focus on, maybe the top 2 or 3, after you do those finalist interviews, then do much more in-depth background checks and reference checks. The reason for that is that background checks can get pretty pricey. And if, let's say you do 6 to 8 finalist interviews, that's,
That's a lot of background.
and it's not, my fee is not going to be able to cover that.
Right.
So,
So that's why I asked the question.
yeah.
Should we say something about that, or is that kind of
I
formal
think
agreement we
that's,
have?
I don't
and I
think
think
we
that's
would.
an internal
Yeah.
Okay.
administrative
Make sure.
part of my
Yeah.
contract.
Okay, you're comfortable with it?
Yeah. It's just like we, telling the thieves, we're not going to check you or whatever, or just something that we should just keep it on for ourselves.
Okay, so are we prepared to approve this as modified?
Make a motion to approve it as incorporating the revisions that was suggested.
Okay,
Second?
okay, it's moved and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
All right, thanks, Bobby. Have
All right.
a safe
Thank
journey
you.
back home.
Yeah, we really appreciate
Have
you
a safe
staying
drive
so late.
home.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, motion to approve, to extend the meeting to 11:45.
That's
Second.
just,
Is there a second?
I did.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We got 3 votes. No?
yes, yeah, no, I'm okay.
You okay? Okay.
I'm okay, I just,
All right, okay, we're okay.
Let us-
Everybody's okay with it. All right.
Only because it's your first night, Ray.
Yeah, right.
We'll go as long as we need to.
Yeah. So the next item is the membership for the Heart.
I make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've got it unanimously. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to withdraw item E.
Okay.
And we may or may not bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Good.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Got any other things to report?
Not at this late hour.
Okay. Any subcommittee reports?
Yeah, I attended the CCAG meeting, and first part of it, Clark was there, but I continued the meeting, and I can't say what happened at the closed session, right? Not the
Yeah.
detail?
Al,
No, I would
Okay.
you can't,
What was reported is the job was given to Sandy Wong, the current assistant, and some were a little bit frustrated because it just job description was written to fit exactly for the person. And one of the concerns that some shared, this is after the meeting, not during, that the health insurance, the PERS was at 2.7 at 55. And the fact that the salary is going to be 175,000. And they said that, well, the job description went out that way, so they're just going to offer the job for 1 year. And after 1 year, if the employee works out, then fine. If not, then at that time they can negotiate the rate. And the troublesome for me is the fact that the job requires to go after the money from Sacramento. And nowhere in any of the job descriptions stated that requirement whatsoever. And they can't go now put it in because it wasn't in the job description. So, catch-22. So that's the report that took place.
The whole process was interesting and behind closed doors, so to speak. Everybody, with the exception of myself, agreed to how to go through the recruitment process. And a subcommittee was formed, and I asked for representation on the North County, which it didn't happen. The chair chose volunteers, which I volunteered. Carol Matsumoto from South San Francisco volunteered, and a whole bevy of them, and neither her or I were picked. And it was supposed to be distributed to the county for the subcommittee. And then they used the county's HR department
Yes.
to request, and apparently they got some really good applicants, but which we were never privy to any of the review. And
It was amazing.
then they narrowed it down and then came back to the board with the final applicant. I was asking to come back with at least 2 final applicants to come before the board, and nobody agreed with me whatsoever.
Well, in the
Not one person.
in the
Not
70,
one person agreed. Out of 20 cities in San Mateo County, they all said, let the subcommittee handle it. And we didn't get any information whatsoever until the closed session, which unfortunately I had to leave, but I'm glad that Seppi was there too. And so, I mean, ultimately, you come up with a candidate that, that I'm sure is qualified and everything like that, but, it's just,
the process.
God, this is not really process, because 5 or 6 people got to make the decision. And then the rest of,
The rest are supposed to rubber
Yeah.
stamped, huh?
I've been really blessed. Anytime they've had committees that
It
when I
happened
was
very
serving,
fast. Yeah.
I always ended up in them. It just maybe because I'm too crazy and they want to shut me up or whatever, but I've always got into any of the committee. They had the executive director evaluation, they had this, they had that. I had to be there. It just, because of exactly what you're talking about. The process is really flawed. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and that's, the way it is right now, and so, you just have to,
So you have new executive director.
For 1 year.
Yeah, for 1 year.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what that was about. We didn't even get a copy of the contract until the closed session, so I never did see it, so Seppi.
Oh, you didn't see that?
No, I never saw
On the pack? Oh, yeah. Oh, good.
Wasn't in the
then
packet.
I have that's right. I have a copy. I picked
Yeah,
up
I don't
extra
even
copy.
know, I don't know even
I'd be more than happy. I would send it to you.
know what happened, so.
Yes. Yes, I would.
Anyway,
do
it's
that.
interesting,
Yes.
but that's the way it goes, so.
Yeah. And then another one, it's not a subcommittee, but I think 3 of us attended the Council of Cities. And I think I know Cliff wasn't quite pleased with what I'm going to say. I really think we need to definitely stick by the direction we give to our member. If we say the first time you do this, that's what it should happen. The second time, it should happen that way. If a person is just like me, if you tell me, go to the meeting and vote for this person and I go there and don't do it, I think it is in violation of the trust that you put on me. I should definitely follow what it was said. That's just for yourself to keep that in mind. What the council direction to our representative must be adhered to. So, as you know what happened, it was too many people applied for MTC, and the decision is going to be made next month. And all the others were selected based on, there were really not much competition or anything like that per se.
Well, the standing vote as it was Gina had 9 votes, Alicia Gary had 6, and Jerry Deal had 5. That's 20 votes.
Yeah, I think Jerry needs to, I don't think he's going to be able to make it. Apparently he has.
So you
But-
need 11, right?
Right.
You need 11.
Right.
But if I may
Okay.
comment,
Alicia, for example,
Okay.
again, it's my concern about having all the transportation seats go to Redwood City. That's a concern. Gina Pappen, again, that's going to come back again to us again before, but this is an elected seat, okay? If you vote for a person that has 1 year, that seat after 1 year becomes a public seat. No accountability to the council. People were very upset last time when Sue Lempert got it, and they vowed that they would not let it happen again. But we've had new people at the,
You always get new people.
and the history is gone, and when you say it,
Enter the
and when you
process.
bring it up, they say, oh, that's inappropriate. This is not the place for it. So, I know this matter is going to come MTC, so I just
We'll
let
agendize
it go.
for the 14th.
all right, are you
Yes.
finished, Sabi?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, I just want to let you know that I appreciate the council supporting me for that position. Coma wound up supporting me. At that meeting, I was given guidance by our body to vote a certain way. And I voted that way as was recommended by all of you. When you go to this meeting, granted, I'm new to the whole thing. I'm in my 3rd year. I'm not that politically savvy, but I'm learning. And one of the things when you go to the Council of Cities meeting and you're in that room and you're talking with the other mayors, the people who are voting. You're trying to get their feedback, get an understanding of where they're coming from. A lot of mayors are given direction from their councils to vote a certain way for the first round. Then after that, they're free to vote however they choose. Now, of course, we didn't do that. We decided, okay, after a certain point, you can then vote. You're supposed to vote for Jerry Deal. That was what we decided. And then I continued to vote for Jerry Deal when it was apparent that I wasn't going to get the position. Now, I had applied for the position because I've been thinking of our city. The MTC position is an extremely important position. That's where all the planning, the coordinating, and the financing of all the major transportation projects come from. And so with our Baylands development, it is extremely important that we have someone who understands that transportation dollars are tied to the SCS, the Sustainable Community Strategy. And none of that information is coming out from any of the other candidates. And so, so as I'm talking with council members, Seppi comes up to me and says, remember what you're supposed to do. And it's like you're saying,
After the
no, and it was not, it's before. And, and I wasn't going to mention it, but, you brought it up, so I'm just going to put it out there. What you're telling me is that once you lose, you're supposed to vote for this person. And, and I don't want to hear that from one of my council members. I want the support of my council. And so, and I want my council to know that I'm going to listen to what you guys have told me to do, and I'm going to do it. And so that, and so, no, so, you know, let me finish. And so that's what I didn't get. And then you kept, as I'm talking to council members, you keep interrupting me as I'm talking to people because you say you need to tell me something important. The most important thing at that meeting was that MTC position for representing our city. And so, you know, when the mayor is at the meeting, you let the mayor do what the mayor is supposed to do. And so, let me just finish. And so, again, you know, I applied for this position for the city, but I also applied for this position for my own growth. It gave me an opportunity to put myself out there. And, you know, I had, I had an opportunity to speak before the whole council body, and I missed that opportunity. I was, you know, the chair said, hey, does anybody want to make a brief comment? And I thought that making a comment would happen after a couple of rounds. And unfortunately, and I had this speech that I had prepared all day, you know, and I feel bad that I wasn't able to present it. But, you know, in the end, it you know, maybe I was flustered by, you know, my engagement with you, Seppi, you know, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. And it was my fault. I didn't pick up on that cue. But, you know, I had people, you know, I was at this meeting tonight, and I had people come up to me and say, you know what, Cliff, that was, even though you didn't get it, you know, you gracefully bowed out and you put yourself out there. And that, you know, people are going to remember that for the next time. And so, you know, to say, you know, to make comments like, well, you know, Cliff, that is, you know, we had these candidates who wasted people's time, and, you know, that doesn't make us a cohesive council. So, sorry, I'm just kind of, you know, ranting. I'm, but, you know, it's 11:45, and but you know that's where I'm coming from.
I think there was information that you didn't know that you didn't want to even listen. At the CCAG meeting, after CCAG meeting, a bunch of us went for a drink. Okay. I had first-hand information that Coma was voting for Gina Pappen, okay? And then you're standing there trying to get Helen to vote for you, and Helen is not even in the picture, and or whatever you were doing.
I got 2 votes, Seppi. One came from us and from Coma. Well, I already been told. I had talked to the mayor during
the second time. That's the second round or whatever. But my only concern that I brought this up, we need to make sure. If you tell me to vote for this person, second time, I need to respect the council comments.
He did.
I did.
Not
you
the
know,
second time.
You know, how many votes did I get the second round, Seppi? I got 0 because I voted for Gary Deal.
And that's the time to bow out. This is the politics.
You know, again, I already, you know what?
You didn't even want to listen to me. You didn't even get, he got 0. I mean, that's not.
You know what? The reason I got 0 votes because I'm new to the process. I should have, you know what, I should have, you know what, I didn't need your help, but you were advising me that I needed it.
Representing our city.
I think that we've gone a little past where we should. And I think that it's gotten too late.
Thank you. But I'm sorry you didn't get it.
You know, okay.
No, I wouldn't say that if I didn't mean it.
Sure.
So we have just a couple of short things that we can probably get through very quickly, so we can adjourn for
midnight?
The evening or the morning?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any other subcommittee reports.
Okay, that's good. Can I move on to just communications?
Yep.
Okay with that?
Yes, please.
The reason that the SF Bay Restoration Authority is on the agenda is that they're asking, there's an open seat for the West Bay, and we are included in the West Bay. And not that many, you know, it's San Francisco, and then, you know, northern cities in San Mateo County. And the reason this could be important to us is that they managed all the money for wetlands restoration. And that could very well be a part of the Baylands process. So I thought we should at least know about this, and they're asking for expressions of interest by January 2nd. And I guess I just wanted to ask if any of you have heard about anybody being interested, because the previous representative was from San Francisco. But, maybe it's time for someone, let's say from a San Mateo County supervisor or something like that. I don't know. Should we weigh in on this, or should we just let it go, or just make it as an information item, or what?
I think
is your
you'd be
advice?
great for the position, Ray.
No.
When I
I'm
read
not-
that document, I thought, I was thinking of you.
Yeah, no, I don't know much about wetlands. Nor would we have much of a chance, but I would think like somebody like Supervisor Pine or somebody like that might have a chance.
You know, Dave Pine has come up to Brisbane on a couple of occasions,
Right.
and he's quite active with the Mission Blue Nursery. I owe Dave Pine a call. Let me write that down. And
Is that
ask
okay with everybody else? We just ask them?
Of course.
Of course.
Okay. All right.
So we're nominating Dave Pine then, if
Or
we should
we
accept.
ask him, because
Yes.
the individual has to
Of course.
file an
nominate himself.
application.
Yes.
And it's picked by the
Yes.
person from ABAC, right? The head of the,
Well, I was just talking to the president because the assignments are coming up and all that.
right.
And I have
ABAC
given my
president,
name, yes, because I'll be the chair of the finance committee for ABAC. I'm right now vice chair of the regional planning, and some of these committees might automatically fall in my category. I don't know. I don't know that, but this could be one of them.
So you're saying you want to apply for this position?
I can do that. I mean, if you want the city to be in there, I could do that because I'm there for the meetings, and I've gone to their tours.
I think if you want to do it, you should do it. I mean, no one else on the council is interested in the position,
Okay, I can do that.
unless you're,
I can do
Terry.
that.
You think?
No, I wouldn't want to bite that off at this point.
Because I might automatically end up with it, I'm not sure.
Okay,
I
well,
guess
why don't,
Part of the list of the
Comment?
committees that I've put in.
what's that?
This is on the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority?
Right,
But it's part of the ABAC committees,
yeah, right. Well, the ABAC president evidently makes the,
yes.
so why don't we follow,
Okay, I can do that. If you want to give my name, I can do that.
I think you.
I think
just
you need
fill out the
to, file,
application.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
I'll do that.
Right on the back page.
Okay,
But let me know.
I would send up these
for-
papers.
I mean, is this a for sure thing that you're going to do?
yes, I would do it. Once yeah, I would definitely.
So, okay, so then I won't ask Dave Pine then.
Yes, I would do it.
Okay, I will refrain from that. I still owe him a call.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
All right.
be more than happy to.
The last thing is the letter, very literate letter from an 8th grader
Yes.
about composting. And I was,
Oh, that was-
did you respond yet?
I did respond to him. I sent him a personal card.
Okay.
Wrote him a little card.
Did you respond? Our contractor is looking at doing that in the future?
I responded to the 8th grader and said that I thought it was very great that, and responsible for him to send us that letter, and that we would talk about it at our next council meeting. And that I hope that maybe that person could attend.
Yeah, poor kid would be past.
I wanted to say that,
Chief would have to arrest him for being out in a curfew.
And I had talked to Clay about it too, and Clay had said, yeah, we're kind of already, it looks like South City Scavengers is moving in that direction.
Right, they're moving there, and they're not there yet, but, eventually,
oh, I thought that the last time that they came and presented to us, they sounded very optimistic about getting their digester online
no, they are.
eventually.
They are.
Yeah, it's in the plan, and they're gonna have an anaerobic digester, and they're gonna actually be using the methane that it produces to
Right.
fuel their trucks.
Right,
Right. Yeah, that's kind of in the works, and that's kind of what Recology's doing too.
Already.
And Allied Waste, Terry, I think I talked to you, telling you I recycle 400 to 500 pounds of organic material a week. And it's,
okay, so do we need to do anything more? Do we need to respond anymore, or is your response probably
I
adequate?
think we talked about it, and we,
Okay, and you responded?
Yeah.
and So
I think we're good.
we've taken care of it. Okay. Oral communications?
Anya,
thank you.
the only time that we found you silent. Okay, come on.
Shall I assume we're completed the agenda for the evening?
Good job.
And for the year?
So moved.
So,
Yeah.
Second.
second, all in favor, say, well, allow me to say,
Happy
Happy New
holidays.
Year.
Yeah, because we're not
All
coming
in
back.
favor? Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, Happy New Year and happy holidays to everybody.
All right, congratulations on your first meeting
boy.
back as Brisbane.
Thanks. Nice of you.